Hey, good afternoon. My name's Father Larry Duncklee, for those who don't know me. I'm at St. John's Parish in Riverhead, St. John the Evangelist, Riverhead, New York. And I thought that during this time of year when we look at the scripture readings that focus on the end of life, the end of time, plus we've just gone through this terrible pandemic and we're still going through it where so many people died, might be a good time to talk about the end of life issues and how we approach that as people of faith. As a person of faith, we have some choices when we're close to death. One is that we can despair, give up hope, see death as the end of everything. Or we can doubt. We can wonder, we can think about stuff, we can be confused about the mystery of life, the mystery and the beauty of things in life. Or we can open the floodgate of strength, hope, faith, and truth by the grace of God. We can see life, even as sorrows and struggles, rooted in joy because we partake in the resurrection of Christ. And so just to begin with perhaps a prayer. Gracious God, the life of all those who are faithful to you is changed but not ended. When their earthly dwelling decays, an everlasting home is prepared for them in heaven. Receive your servants, particularly those who have died this year, into your kingdom, where they will live forever and ever. Amen. Today, as I speak about the end-of-life issues, there's a lot that goes into that, and it's impossible to handle everything. And so if you want to ask questions, you can. You can type in and email them here, whatever it is that you do. I don't know how that works. Or you can email questions to the parish, and I'll respond at any time. My email is ldunck77@aol.com. So what are some of the things that go into this idea? First, if we're really sick, we're dying, forgiveness. To forgive others, to have people who need to forgive me, and also perhaps sacramentally to go to confession. Who do we call? Well, these are just normal things. They have booklets. Funeral homes give them out, and other places give them out. Phone numbers, who to call when someone is dying or when someone has died. The bank. What do we do at the bank? As you remember, perhaps when I was growing up, you were always told that if someone died, don't tell anybody until you go to the bank and close out their account. There's all sorts of legal issues. For those issues, you should consult a lawyer, not your local priest. Papers, you should have papers. You know, your will should be available, all sorts of stuff. The codes to all your passwords, everything should be available for somebody. But for this purpose, what you must have is a healthcare proxy. And I'm going to spend a good deal of time on that today. We face at the end of life social issues, friends, family. We face economical issues, the cost of what's going on, the cost of treatment. Who am I going to leave my money to? Philosophical and medical and ethical questions. Spiritual questions. And also, is it legal, and is it legal in the church's mind as well? So we're going to look at these things. Some of the things that you should have, and you should be aware of it by now. In fact, everyone in New York City should be aware of the healthcare proxy. It's been published in every hospital you walk into. It's there. Anyone's ever admitted, you had to be presented with one. You should know about it. You should have one. It's real simple. I'm going to show you the form. You can go online to New York State Health, and you can get it there. You can get it from a hospital. You can get it from your doctor's office, probably. The healthcare proxy. You could also go to United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and get a Catholic healthcare proxy. There's a difference, and I'll explain that later on. An organ donation card. That's so important. We have so many people that are dying because they can't get an organ. And it's so simple to just sign that form, put it in your wallet, make a copy of it, attach it to your healthcare proxy form too, so that it's together, so that the person who is your proxy will know about that. Medical directives. That's when you get further on down the road if you're really dying and you're in the care of someone. It's a form called MOST, medical orders of life-sustaining treatment. And I'll explain that too. A living will. You don't need it in New York State. The healthcare proxy is fine. You don't need a living will. Because many times the living will handcuff your proxy. Because you'll put something down of what you think now, but then when you lose the ability to make a decision later on, something may have changed. And you don't want to tie the hands of the person who's given the responsibility of taking care of you. And then also funeral directives. And extent, you can go to a funeral parlor to pick it up, or you can do it yourself. What would you like at the funeral? What readings would you like? What songs would you like? All those kinds of things are important. So you can find all of this information on the internet, in the library. You can talk to your local parish priest who has most of this information, your doctor, all these people are there. Okay, healthcare proxy. I have one, and where did I put it? Okay. This is the New York State healthcare proxy. Okay, I'm just going to come a little bit closer to show it to you. It's one page here, and then the other page here. It's really very simple. New York State made it this way. This has been revised 3 times already that I know of. So it just says, right here, your name, your address, your phone number. My agent knows my wishes regarding artificial nutrition and hydration. I'll talk about it in a few minutes later. It takes effect when I'm able to make my own decisions. And then there's optional instructions. I direct my healthcare agent to make these wishes that I like. So for mine, I have an organ donation card, but they cannot take my brain, and they can't take my reproductive organs. Those 2 things they cannot use, because I always joke and say, because I never used them in my life, so why should anyone else after I'm dead? Okay. And then you have to print the name, phone numbers of your proxy and the alternate. Okay. The donation card form they put right on the form now. This is the newest one, so you can put it right on this form. And then the research what they can use it for. And then also you have to sign it, and then 2 witnesses have to sign, put their address. I also put the phone number in too, because if they need to contact them, a phone number is important. So it's not on this form. It really should be. So that's the New York State one. This is the Catholic healthcare proxy. So I'm not going to show it to you because it's a lot long. It's 3 pages. And the difference is, when they talk about this stuff, they also put wishes regarding healthcare decisions and expressed by limitations. And what it talks about is this section right here. If I'm reasonably expected to live, if given food and water, I would like to get that. However, my healthcare agent may consent to discontinuing food and water when they no longer provide reasonable hope of prolonging my life or relieving my suffering. They may be discontinued when their provision or the means of providing them causes me significant discomfort or imposes other excessive burdens on me or my family. So, I suggest you go get the Catholic one. If you're watching this, you might be Catholic, and fill that out. The issues that are different on that is artificial fluid and nutrition. People may be confused, and the reason why they're confused is because the official theologians are also divided on this issue. The Catholic teaching has never ever required efforts to preserve life must be prolonged until the person's death is imminent, inevitable. If death is imminent, then certainly life support can be removed. But it can also be withheld if it does not offer hope or the benefit of hope, or if it imposes an excessive burden upon the patient, the family, or the community to which the patient belongs. An earlier church teaching included in there economic burden upon the family or society or community. That's important and you saw it in that limited resources during a pandemic when not everybody could get a breathing apparatus machine. So that's part of the reality of life. The criteria for hope and benefit, excessive burden, have led to a creation between ordinary and extraordinary. That's not the terms, the medical terms, but that's what we sometimes use. Proportionate or disproportionate means is what the church really uses. A proper use of those terms requires that the individual patient's condition is known. That's why the proxy needs to have access to the information on the medical chart of that person. And there is something you can sign also that gives you complete access to the person who you're going to be the proxy of their complete medical information. So allowing the person to be removed from life support systems is not suicide. It's not euthanasia. It's allowing the person to die. In the case of euthanasia or suicide, the purpose of the action of removing something is to kill the person. That's not the case here. The person allowing someone to die is to avoid performing any action that is futile or overly burdensome, as the first part mentioned. In these conditions, the conclusion is not that life is futile or burdensome, but that the means to prolong it are futile or impose grave burdens. Life itself is never futile or burdensome. The church teaching on the use of foregoing artificial nutrition, again, I said that distinction is divided on theologians. They're not unified on this. Some people wish to classify, it's called ANH, artificial nutrition hydration, as comfort or natural care. They don't consider it life-sustaining intervention. They would classify bathing patients, changing their linen, in the same category, which it is not. They say it should always be utilized for dying people who can't eat or swallow. And some people, under the mistaken idea that Pope John Paul II, when he changed, or people thought he changed, 2,000 years of church thought, by a statement he made on this, because he said that it's not a medical act, it's a natural means of preserving life. But later on, he changed that. This is a quote. For example, good nursing care requires that a bedridden patient be turned frequently so that he or she will not develop decubitus ulcers. But if the turning should involve great pain or possibility, even broken bones, it should not be performed because it might impose an excessive burden. That's really an important thing, important distinction. So excessive burden is a part of the determination in Catholic thought on medical ethics. Some theologians maintain that prolonging the life of a person who can't eat or drink and have no potential for cognitive function, for example, someone who's in what we call permanent vegetative state, suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, it is a great benefit because it provides life and nourishment for them. So, this is a statement again from John Paul II, which was affirming traditional teaching. He stated, "True compassion encourages every reasonable effort for the patient's recovery. At the same time, it helps to draw the line when it is clear that no further treatment will serve the purpose. Indeed, the object of the decision of whether to withdraw the treatment has nothing to do with the value of the patient's life, but rather whether such medical intervention is beneficial for the patient. The possible decision not to start or to halt or stop treatment will be deemed ethically correct if the treatment is ineffective or obviously disproportionate to the aims of sustaining life or recovering health." So, that's important to know. That's a great distinction. So you are able to remove fluid and nutrition, but you should talk to someone about it. The doctor, family members, the nurse. I always find, I don't want to insult anybody, but I always find that the nurses are best to give you information on that. You can talk to a parish priest or someone who's competent in that area. Christians, and people of other faiths too, are convinced that we all should seek healthy, long life, because that's the goal of life, to live that long. But it's not the greatest value. Life is not the greatest value. Never has been, never was purported by the church to be. The greatest value is faith, hope, and love. The greatest value is eternal life with God. Life is a way of getting us there. So that's important also. The documents are different in different parts of the country with the church. So for instance, one conference of bishops maintained that the advance directive should say If I'm unable to eat or drink, my own food, fluids must be provided for me in a system manner. Must be. In Illinois, Wisconsin, and Kentucky, they don't have that in theirs. And the one that I read, the one I use, says it's presumed that you would. However, if there's no burden, no benefits being given, and it's excessive burden, you don't have to do that. So, the teaching of the church is consistent in this. For over 500 years, the principal criteria for using or foregoing life support are hope of benefit and degree of burden. They apply to the use of artificial nutrition and hydration as to all other medical and surgical procedures currently in use now or to be developed in the future. What I always say, I try to simplify it, is that if you are on a deserted island and you have a doctor there, the best doctor in the world and the best nurse in the world, and he has his little medical bag, whatever he can do with that bag is all that he has to do. And I'm saying pretty much the same thing in a hospital situation. Because we have all this equipment, all this stuff, doesn't mean we have to use it. When I used to teach this to doctors in the diocese and in other dioceses, I would draw on the blackboard a person in the ground with a tombstone. And then coming out of the tombstone was a line hooked up to a bag feeding the person. Because back then, we're talking 40 years ago, 35, 40 years ago, doctors whose goal was to preserve life and save life found it very difficult to let go, which is why very few people were ever put on hospice until 1 or 2 days before they died. Then it became a week, now it's a bit longer. So now the physicians, the medical field, have realized the importance of palliative care and hospice care much more than before. So now they even promote it, and it helps them deal with their patients. So it's important in those situations to call and check with palliative care or hospice care. They offer many, many benefits to the person and to the family. But the teaching is okay. So, power of attorney for health care. You don't need that in New York. You can get it. You can pay a lawyer. You have the thing drawn up, but you don't need it. The healthcare proxy was written in such a way to provide for every possible thing you could think of. You don't need a living will. In some states, a living will is acceptable. In New York, it only adds to something. So it gives a little bit more credence if the proxy says, my sister did not want to be on any machines. And in her living will, it says, I didn't want to be. It gives kind of proof, but it's not necessary. There's something called medical orders. Do not resuscitate. You can have that in a hospital, but it has to be signed there by the doctor. You can have it in your home if you're someone that comes in and out a lot. For the emergency worker to see it when they come in, they don't have to do that. They don't have to do cardiac breathing. They don't have to do electric shock. They don't have to do any of that stuff if you have a medical order saying that. There's something also called the MOST form. That's this thing here. Medical orders for life-sustaining treatment. This is the new form that has come out. It doesn't take the place of the healthcare proxy, but this is now what most places and hospitals are using. It's also used for people who are disabled, unable to make functions, people who are in group homes, people with perhaps, like my nephew has Down syndrome, my sister has one of these for him, because without this form, you can't make a decision for your own child who is developmentally disabled. You can't do it. It has to go through the Social Services Department of New York State in special forms. So if you have someone in that situation, you need to get this now, talk about it, and get all that information. It says the same things. So if I'm not breathing, other instructions, it has being intubed, it has fluid nutrition. So everything is in here that's in the healthcare proxy. But this is only if you are in that situation, or if you're close to death, if you have a terminal illness. This is not for the regular person. So, those are those things. And believe it or not, the law states it needs to be pinkish and on hard stock. It can't be regular loose leaf paper, because they expect this to be put on your refrigerator So when the EMT comes in, they see it and they know. It's a doctor's order on what that is. If anyone has questions, you can type them in or send them in, just so you know. Now, the most form, because it's a medical order before the event happens, is also something like the living will that you don't always know what's going to go on. The bishop conferences across our country have urged caution because it's intended to be used for someone in the final stages of illness. And maybe you haven't approached that yet. In some states, there's an interplay with other end-of-life policies. So it's important to take time to reflect upon your belief about life, suffering, and death from a Catholic perspective, Christian perspective, and to recognize always that human life is sacred. It's a gift from God. So it must be treated that way, whatever decisions we make. All persons possess an inherent dignity, and they're worthy of respect, protection, and care. It doesn't end if someone's terminally ill or if someone's in an incapacitated position in life. Catholics believe that death is a participation in the redemptive power of Jesus Christ. I want to talk about rights and responsibilities for Catholics. Way back, maybe 28 years ago, Bishop McGann commissioned a commission to work on end-of-life issues, and we put out a document on rights and responsibilities. Unfortunately, he got sick, it never got published, so it's never there, but I have a copy of it. And he agreed to it, but it never got published before he got sick and died. So, I just want to talk about a particular right and responsibility. Any Catholic who is close to death, or any Catholic who is caring for someone who is close to death, which means their family members, the right and responsibility is every Catholic must seek, have access to confession, viaticum. Viaticum is food for the journey, the Eucharist, the last Eucharist on their way back to God, and also the sacrament of the sick. So all people should ask for that. It's one of the commandments, in a sense, to do that. Many people don't know that, and many people wait until the person is almost dead because they think, I'm going to scare them. No, I'm not going to scare them. They know they're dying. If I'm coming there, I give them hope and encouragement, and many times their family as well. Celebrating the sacrament of the sick is one of the greatest blessings I have as a priest, to share with people so many times, to just pray with people. And so often people write a thank you. They write a thank you back because I was there with their mother or father, brother or sister who was dying, and pray with them the sacrament of the sick. So it's important to seek that as part of life. Who should get a healthcare proxy? Anyone over the age of 18. If you're under 18, your parents have the ability to make that decision. If you're going away to college, if you're entering into a long-term relationship, and the reason for that is that if you're in a long-term relationship, whether you're married or not, that other person can't make any decisions for you unless a document says so. If you're getting married, if you're getting divorced, it needs to be changed possibly. If you're adopting, if you're getting a medical diagnosis that is not a great one, if you're planning a major trip, you might want to take it with you. But check the other states, the other countries. Every state can be different in this. That's important. Who can be a witness? Any two people over the age of 18. They just got to sign it. It doesn't have to be notarized. They just sign it. They put their name, their address, phone number there. And that's that. The non-hospital order is the one we talked about the most. And you should keep them on the refrigerator, in your file. Your doctor should have a copy, and your healthcare proxy should have a copy. So you need to make 4 or 5 copies of that. All right. What? The forms are all in. No, they have to be, because they have to be in the chart. So they need to be. They could be digital, but at this time, as far as I know, all these forms are handwritten, and it has to be. This one has to be pink, hard copy. So I don't know. You'd have to check that. You have to check in this world where everybody lives on their phone. You may have to check with a lawyer and with a medical profession if those things are allowed or not. I'm really not sure on that. There is a OPWDD, so person with disabilities, there's a form on that, and there's a new form, it's called the Mental Hygiene Law, Article 17A of the Surrogates Court Procedure Act. So big thing, but you might want to check that out if you have someone in that capacity. The United States Catholic Bishops put out a wonderful, wonderful book, Now and at the Hour of Our Death. It's really, really a wonderful publication. It talks about the issues, it talks about the family healthcare decision, the living will, healthcare proxy is in here. So you can go to the New York State Catholic Conference, New York State Catholic Conference to get one, or you can go to other sites to get that. And again, New York State was one of the first to really do this well. When they formed the committee way back, one of the priests in our diocese was on that committee to help them keep that in mind, the ethical and spiritual dimensions of a healthcare proxy. This is something called When Death is Near. It's from Good Shepherd Hospice. So Good Shepherd Hospice is down on the South Shore. It's part of Good Samaritan Hospital, and it's a hospice. They have a great book here on different aspects of when it's there. But they have something called Withdrawal, and I want to read this because I found it really interesting. Withdrawal. We're not talking here about withdrawing of medication or treatment. We're talking about withdraw from friends, family, and the world around is a normal part of the dying process. Unfortunately, that's true. It shouldn't be. When someone is dying, or when someone dies, people stay away. They withdraw, and they shouldn't. One of my best experiences, I used to work in a volunteer or study at Calvary Hospital in the Bronx. And I loved it when a member of the Baptist black community was dying. Because everybody come in. The kids would come in, they would come in, they'd sing songs and everything, because they were celebrating what we say we celebrate, death to life. But they celebrated it in song and joy. When no one was looking, they had some food, ate in there, not supposed to. But that's what we bring into the situation, our faith, our hope, our love. So we should never withdraw from people who are dying. And if we are dying, we should not withdraw from others. I always tell people that if I'm going to die, I'm going to go up to my room and crawl into a bed and stay there. That's not true. I say that jokingly, but I really shouldn't even do that because it sends a signal out. We should never withdraw in those situations. Okay, so that's that. This is a pamphlet on MOST, so you can get this from the hospital or your healthcare place or the clinic if you go there. This book here, this magazine, The Liguorian, this is from the Liguori Publications. Alphonse Liguori, great saint, who actually wrote some phenomenal material on life-sustaining treatment. In this magazine, the October 2014 edition, so it's a while ago, it's Redemptorist Pastoral Publications, so Liguorian, October 2014. There's a whole thing here on end-of-life decisions. What is our moral responsibility? And it's one of the best articles I've ever read on the whole issue. So if you have time, this is a wonderful article to get. You can go online. I'm sure you can find it online. So that's kind of a shotgun approach, a rapid-fire shotgun approach of end-of-life issues. I encourage you strongly, if you do not have a healthcare proxy, get one. Fill it out. Sit down and talk with the two people who are going to be your proxies. Let them know what your feelings are about all those issues. Also, talk with your physician about it. Make sure he or she knows what your wishes are. Because sometimes the treatment that they offer may not be good in what you decided you want to do in your dying days. So that's important. Okay? God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving.